This. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the best sports talk hour on radio. We're on Love Bay Afrobeat Music and Talk Radio. I am Roger Shaw, and with me today is Monali Patel. She's our guest host for Ingleton Library, who is currently leading the Canadian team in their cricket game against Namibia. So he's a very busy man this week, and thank you, Monali, for joining us on board today. How are you feeling?
Good. I'm feeling good.
Good,
Back
good.
to the cold up north.
I know, I know.
Very envious of Ingle to be in the warmth of Namibia.
He's having fun over there. He's nice and warm, and we're over here in the cold. So we'll see how that go. In that game that he's managing over there, Canada is doing. I don't know what you say. Okay, I mean, Namibia made 186. Canada is currently 91 for three after 27 overs. So you think they can win this, Manali?
They should win this. It's actually disappointing to see them three down because they had a really solid start.
Start. Yes,
And then
yes,
the wickets came in clumps, which doesn't help when there's rain because your DLS is gonna take a hit with all those wickets.
yes. Duckworth Lewis is always a killer for me personally. I don't like that system because it makes good teams lose.
And I mean, they keep talking about trying to readjust it because sometimes it's not exactly relevant to the situation.
It's
I'm no mathematician though,
I
so
know, but most of the time for me it's not relevant. Most of the times, but yeah, sometimes I see it makes sense, but most of the time it's like, my God, where are they coming from? But we'll see. We'll keep our fingers crossed that Canada can pull this off and don't keep losing wickets when they shouldn't.
mhm,
They got to make 94, I think, of 22 overs, so
yeah,
that's doable. That's really,
plenty.
really doable.
Yeah,
Really, really
plenty of
doable.
time.
So Ingle must be smiling over there. So today we're going to talk about all the things that's happening. A lot of things happening over there in sports across the world.
Hmm.
Every week there's a lot, and as you get closer to the spring and to the summer, so much more is happening. But we're going to start with a little tennis this week. So, we saw Novak Djokovic, the greatest tennis player in terms of the amount of titles he has won. This year, though, he's gone to three straight defeats. I'm not sure what your thoughts are. When you get to that age, he's now 37. Do you keep playing? Do you go for that one title that's got to make you the greatest of all times? Or you say, you know what, my game is going down. I need to stop. I don't know where you are on this. I think he should keep going personally because I think he's a tough guy, but should he keep going?
It's a very tricky one for a lot of athletes, isn't it? Knowing when to retire, because in
Yes,
your heart you still want to keep going, but it's your
yes,
body that starts to let you down. And these are high performance athletes. They're putting in a lot of time, a lot of hours on that body. Is it worth it for him to keep pushing? I mean, he's done so much, so you'd say, yeah, maybe, but at
yeah.
the end of the day, you also want to retire on a high. You don't want to retire
There you go.
on your decline. So it's a tricky one. It's a very tricky one.
I don't know. I say keep going for this year. That's my thoughts on it. Keep going for at least this year, but if he doesn't win anything this year, I think he should say he gave it a shot.
Yeah.
If I see him next year, I'm like, no, nobody. You're damaging your career now. You're
Yeah.
going down
It's
to, yeah,
it's a tough transition though, isn't it, mentally, because
it is.
you've been that person for so many years. That's your identity. So
Yes,
where do you
yeah.
go after that? What do you do? How do you adjust mentally?
It's a very, very, very tough one. But we'll see what he decides. But for now, he has brought in Andy Murray, a former competitor from England, and his coaching staff. And not sure of how much a difference he's going to make, but we are hopeful that at least we see him being competitive. He's losing before he even gets to the quarterfinals these days, which is just a little disturbing for me
Yeah.
personally, but I'm sure he'll bounce back. Another one that England and I always battle about is Swiatek on the female side because she, for me, should be dominant, but she's not winning anymore. And she's at the Indian Wells tournament and she's facing Andreeva, who beat her the last time they met in Dubai last month. So I think Swiatek is on a roll, and I'm hopeful that we can see how good she is. But maybe this young lady Andreeva is going to find a way to take it over. So interesting competition going on over there in Indian Wells. I'm not sure how much you follow the Indian Wells tournament.
Not much.
Not much. That's fine. That's fine. All right, so we're going to move over now to a little car racing, F1 racing, and Lewis Hamilton. I consider him the greatest driver of all times for now, but he's there. He moved over from Mercedes over to Ferrari, And there's a lot of talk. He's now 40. Is he done? Sort of like that whole Djokovic argument. Is he done? Should he? But anyway, he got a big contract. He's over there now. And in practice, he's doing okay. He was fifth, and he's saying, you know what? It's a little bit too early for me to be fighting for the pole, guys. I'm getting adjusted to the car. But his teammate was the fastest. So it's going to be a big competition within Ferrari alone. But everyone is saying that McLarens are going to win this year, and they were second and third in practice. So, you know what? When I look at it, car racing is a funny thing because it just depends on the car and the conditions, right? So a lot of these cars, I tell you, you get a good... Red Bull did it a couple of years ago. They use AI, changed the whole race, and then nobody could beat them. So let's see what happens this year, I think. But it's going to be a very, very interesting year. There's a lot of hype about what's going on with car racing. And we're going to see if the champion, Verstappen, who is the Red Bull guy, what he can do. We have Leclerc. We have Russell over there in Mercedes, who said, now that Lewis is gone, I'm going to be the champ. It's going to be a pretty exciting year. And it all starts tonight, our time. It's there in Australia, so it's Sunday for them. But tonight, we're going to see how car racing goes in 2025, and we're definitely looking forward to that. And finally, I from my side, I want to talk a little bit about basketball. So Stephen Curry, I don't know how much you have watched this little kid, but he's the first player in NBA history to make 4,000 3-pointers. 4,000 is a big number, a really, really big number. And now he is by far the best. The one behind him is James Harden at 3,127. So he's way ahead of everybody else. I don't know. You watch basketball a lot, or
here and there, but that's a staggering number.
Can you imagine 4,000?
Staggering number.
And he's not done yet. He's still going. So let's see how far he goes. But kudos to him. Congratulations. That's a massive, massive number. And I'm sure he's going to continue and put the record somewhere that everybody's going to take a long time to catch up to. And finally, on basketball, on a sad note, Oliver Miller, better known as the Big O, because he was, to put it in non-political terms, he was really chubby when he was playing basketball. He passed away. He was part of the inaugural Toronto Raptors team in 96, I think, when I started here. So passed away, and he played from 95 to 98 here in Toronto. So condolences to him and his family. And I don't know if you watched him play, but he was exciting to watch, although he was a big guy. So condolences to him and his family for this passing. So, anything other sport you want to talk about before we get to cricket, lovely cricket?
Well, we could talk about Messi and his appearance in Jamaica, if you'd like.
Yeah, sure. So we can talk a little soccer. So I don't know what your thoughts are on this. It's always a big argument about who is the greatest ever. Is it Pele? Is it Maradona? Is it Messi? Is it Ronaldo? But for now, for those that are actively playing, he's the best player out there.
Yes.
And he came to the Caribbean the first time ever. And of course, it was a big deal. A big deal. So he was there in Jamaica. Jamaica has a brand new stadium made in the colors of the Jamaican flag. And it was just an exciting time. So it was the Inter Miami football team playing against the Cavalier football team from Jamaica in a championship competition. And Messi, he hasn't played in a while because they're resting him. He's another one, 37. So
yeah, getting up there.
He's trying to make sure that he holds on. He's missing like maybe 4 games before he plays one. So he had missed 4 games, and now, he showed up, and he came in at halftime to, I tell you, man, you could probably hear the loud noise when he came on. They had 35,000 people inside the stadium, which is the maximum it can hold, and another few thousand outside the stadium who could not get into the stadium. It was just massive, massive, massive. And he didn't disappoint. He actually scored a goal in the last minute of play as Inter Miami defeated Cavalier 2-0. So it was an exciting match to watch. I watched the entire game, and he's lost a little of his touch, I must say. He's not the same Messi, in my opinion, but he's playing in parts now, so he has flashes of brilliance, I call it. He's no longer brilliant for 90 minutes. He has flashes of brilliance, and he found a way to put himself on the score sheet in the last minute of play. So that was really, really cool to see him do. So very nice to watch. I mean, I don't know if you watch a lot of soccer games, but I can tell you it was a major, major thing for the Caribbean and especially for Jamaica. The Prime Minister was there, opposition leader was there, all the politicians were there.
Yeah.
Sean Paul, the singer, was there. So everybody was there.
Well, I
It's,
mean, when Messi shows up, you've got to show up,
you
isn't
got
it?
to show
He
up.
is a legend of the game.
He
And like
is
you said, he might not play the 90 minutes, but that's where you as a coach have to manage your player and see when he can come and have the most impact. So
100%,
helped
100%.
him help them get into the quarterfinals. And I suppose that's all you could ask from your best players at that stage.
Exactly. They did well. You know, they won the game and they probably win the whole thing because they have although they're older, a lot of 30-year-olds on this team, but they're a very good team. I think they have a good chance to go all the way.
So I'm going to ask you this question, and I want to know your opinion. Do you think the opposition, the other players, play Messi as Messi, or do they play them, or do they play him as just another soccer player? Because that mental thing is pretty big.
It is pretty big. So they play him as Messi. So before they even get out there, the coach is going to tell them, know where he is at all times. Make sure you cut this out, cut that out. They could probably go through video to show he likes it on his left foot. So make sure you cover that angle and all of that stuff. So you have to give him a lot of respect. And a lot of times they actually put 2 players on him, sometimes 3. So, yeah, you have to play him as Messi because if you don't, he's going to kill you.
He's going to have more than 1 goals in there.
Exactly. So you have to play him as Messi. If not, it's a major, major, major problem. So, yeah, and you know what? I think for this game, they didn't pressure him at all. So they played him as Messi, but, you know, they never put 2 guys on him. It was one with another sort of backed off, but not too far away in case that one needs help. So it's pretty interesting to watch, but a very, very, very good game. Just staying in line with soccer. You had more questions about soccer?
No, I think I'm good with that.
Yeah, so there is a couple other things. So the Champions League, which they say is the greatest tournament on earth, I still believe it's the World Cup, but that is country versus country. But the Champions League is going down, and they're down to their final 8.
Yes.
And in a month's time, you're going to see Aston Villa from England versus PSG from France, Barcelona from Spain versus Borussia Dortmund from Germany, Bayern Munich from Germany versus Inter Milan from Italy, and Arsenal over there from England versus Real Madrid from Spain. So it should be a very, very exciting final 8, and we are absolutely looking forward to seeing who goes forward from here. Real Madrid is trying to do something extremely special because they've won it the most, and they seem as if they have a good chance to win it again. PSG have spent a lot of money, and they're trying to buy these championships. They gave away all their top players, including Messi, and now they're trying to win it, and they're in the final 8. So let's see how far they go. It is going to be very exciting to watch the Champions League final 8 starting in April. But this weekend, we have a Women's League Cup final in England, where it's going to be Chelsea with Ingle's team. Not sure if you knew that, but he's a big Chelsea fan. They're going up against Manchester City. So Manchester City has the Jamaican Khadija Bunny Shaw, who is by far the best player from the Caribbean, and she's been nominated for the Ballon d'Or, which is the greatest soccer player on earth, and she's been nominated for the last couple of years. So she plays for Man City. They're going up against Chelsea. That game is tomorrow, so we're going to see how that one goes, and I'll probably find a way to watch it because I love to see when Bunny Shaw does her thing. She has my name, as you know. She's a Shaw, I'm a Shaw, so makes it more exciting. But yes, she knows how to score goals, and she's the leading goal scorer for Manchester City for the last couple of years, and she is the leading goal scorer this season as well. And I think she's 5'10", and she's not a small girl at all, but she knows how to score. She uses her body really well, and she kicks it really well. And yeah, I'm telling you, let's see how she does this weekend. But it should be a fun one, Chelsea versus Man City, because Chelsea are the defending champions, and they are probably the best team over there in England. All right, I think we're done with soccer for now. We can probably go back later, but I know we want to get to cricket. Lovely, lovely cricket. So I don't know where you want to start. We want to talk about what's going on over there in the Caribbean for the
In the
championship.
4-day, yeah, absolutely.
So let's start with the table. Harpy Eagles are on top, and
They
shooting at
are.
the Eagles is Trinidad. What are your thoughts on that? Is it going the way you expected?
Yes, to be honest, because I feel like Trinidad's always been one of the top sides. Guyana is hanging on.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to be a good contest between the two. It all comes down to who's dominated it over the years as well, doesn't it? And Trinidad for them this season's been exceptional. I mean, their captains scored 3 centuries back to back. You can't ask for better performances than that. So exciting times for them. A lot of things going for them right now.
I agree that Trinidad is up and down, yeah, but when they're good, they're good. Harpy Eagles, Guyana always find a way to get to the finals. I don't know how they do it, but they're very
Yeah.
consistent, extremely consistent. So it's exciting to see how that one is going to go. But I think there's this other competition going on between Joshua Da Silva, Trinidad captain, scoring 3 centuries,
Yeah.
and Tevin Imlach,
Yes.
the Guyanese captain, scoring 2 centuries. So I don't know. England had this big conversation about it when they dropped the silver and gave Imlach the run over in that test in Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't in agreement with it. I'm not sure where you sit on this fence right now, but let me know, where are you with the Tevin Imlach, Joshua Da Silva fight that's going on?
Well, let's put it down to stats. At the moment, De Silva's ahead. And he's one of the leading run scorers as well. So I think, Imlach's going to have to come in and use the last few games to his advantage. But it's always good and healthy to have a competition like this within the West Indies, isn't it? It makes the players work that much harder. And then your pool that represents the top is that much stronger. So healthy competition, tough on both of them because both of them are vying for a spot. But it makes you work that much harder. And it's a good problem to have from a West Indies standpoint.
I agree with that. For me, there's a little piece of loyalty. I think that Silva had saved them so many times, and he was an integral part, vice captain of that team. And Imlach is up and coming, and yeah, he's exciting and he's younger. I'm not sure who is the better wicketkeeper. Maybe you can tell me who's the better wicketkeeper. But as a wicketkeeper batsman, I was thinking I like the grit that the Silva brings to the game. I like the leadership that he brings to the game. So I wasn't in agreement when they dropped him for Imlach. And I don't know what they're going to do this time, but should loyalty play a role in this as well?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because your selections need to be based on what's best for the team. I'm with you on the opinion that De Silva would have been my first pick because he's got the experience, he's got the leadership qualities. Yeah. But then at the same time, if we're looking, and I'm not saying by any way that De Silva's on his way out already, he's still got years left in him.
He has quite a few years.
He does. He absolutely does. So, if we're looking into the future and you say, okay, what do we have in the pipeline? And then we start to look at Imlach. Maybe there's a spot on there for both of them. One of them gets to keep, the other one's there as a batter. They might have to find a way to manage that, but it's a tough one.
It's a very, very tough one for me personally. But you know what? As you said, it's a good thing because De Silva's been playing a while for the cricket in the West Indies, and I've never seen him like this. Yeah. But they dropped him, and look what you see. 3 centuries back to back to back. So
it lights that fire, doesn't it? It makes you work for your spot, which is why loyalties are good in a way, but people rely on them and they become dependent on them, which is to me that could hamper the progress that you're trying to make in a team.
Absolutely. So that's a very interesting one for me to watch. I think for me, outside of that, for me, Trinidad has really got Jason Mohammed. He's 39 and he's the leading scorer. I think he has double centuries and all that. I not knocking anybody. He's playing and he deserves a spot and he says he wants a spot. But are we going to a 39-year-old at this point in the West Indies cricket?
I don't know. As a Canadian, I can't speak because our women's team currently in Argentina has an almost 40-year-old and an almost 50-year-old in the squad. So
50.
The age debate is a tough one for me because you always want to look to the future, especially when someone's that close to their 40s.
Yeah.
And you've got a player pool the size that you do.
Correct.
If someone's deserving of the spot, which in this case he is, then you've got to give him what he's owed because he's put in the work, he's put on the runs, and
Yes,
he's
he did.
earned a spot. If it's not quite the case, then I question H quite often.
You almost have to, but I mean, for me, is it going to be for one series? How long is it going to be for? Right? Are you going to bring in a guy who you know probably won't go another 2 years? You're not short of players. You have some who are equal to what he's doing or just a little less. So with a lot more age on their side. It's a tough call because there is he played for it, absolutely plays for it. So do you not give him a chance? But I think he's all tried out. I mean, that's just my opinion, and maybe I'm bad for saying that, but it's difficult to go to him now when you have so many exciting youngsters coming up.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of the youngsters, they've just launched another league, haven't they? The West Indies.
I
So
saw that the breakout league. I don't
Mhm.
know. I don't know. Is it a good thing in your opinion?
I do actually, and the reason why I think it's a good thing is I notice a lot of times, and this is across the board for a lot of countries. You've got your under 19s, your under 19s will go play the under 19 World Cup, and then there really isn't much of a transition for them from the under 19 stage to the senior stage. So something like this could potentially give them a platform to fill those years and that gap between when they finish the under 19 years to how they've paced themselves into the senior side. And I'm actually a big fan of the restrictions that they put on it because
Yeah.
if you're talking young talent and you're talking giving them specifically a fair chance, then hopefully they'll see some reward out of it. Maybe not immediately, maybe in the
Yeah.
next 2 years, but they should see some reward out of it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think. I mean, is it lacking? I, I wouldn't call it veteran leadership, but I mean, putting these players together, they're all up and coming, they're all young. They got to be under 30, as I said, right? You got to be under 30 with limited match professional experience, fewer than 40 listed T20 matches, fewer than 10 international T20s. So, concept is good, but I mean, are they going to have somebody there, maybe having some of the, maybe like a Jason Mohammed on the teams to sort of teach them, bring them up, or is putting them together all as these youngsters gonna make it harder?
Well, I would assume that they're going to have some mentorship there.
I'm hopeful. I didn't see that in the news in the news article, so I don't know. Do you
But
have insights on that?
I actually don't. I know there were talks of it when I was in St. Lucia recently, but I don't actually know the details of it.
Okay.
I will, however, say that, sometimes we feel like, yeah, well, they're all youngsters put together. Don't they need mentorship and don't they need some coaching, yada, yada, yada. However,
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, they're young blood and they're growing up in a system where cricket's changed and they're
True.
adhering towards that version of cricket.
Agreed.
And sometimes I find when you're bringing in some of your older coaches and some of your older mentors,
Mm-hmm.
they're still playing cricket from an era that has
Past.
changed, has
Yes.
passed, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily associate coaching and mentorship roles with seniority in terms of age. I think sometimes even younger people can be great mentors for this, especially given if they're fresh in the competition or fresh
Mm-hmm.
right out of the competition, they know what the game's become and where it's going.
Okay.
So I think giving them the benefit of the doubt might actually surprise us. They might have the mentality and the grit that we need for cricket as it is today.
No, you're right. And I think we have an exciting group of under 19s and some that have just left under 19. So you're absolutely right. I love the idea of having this competition. Um, More details would be great, but I believe it's going to help the Caribbean because there's no foundation, I believe, that is set there. And you're right.
Mhm.
You get to under 19, you pass that, and then you can't make it into the top teams, and then you become a nobody and
Yeah,
you don't play anymore. So
yeah,
this will make sure that competition is always there, that they have somewhere to go, somewhere to learn,
yeah,
somewhere to get that type of experience that they're looking for. And competition is always good instead of just playing at home or playing in the nets. So I'm actually looking forward to it. All the games though are going to be played at the Brian Lara Cricket Academy in Trinidad and Tobago. You think is that a good thing to have it at one spot all the time, or should it move around to a couple countries?
I mean, moving around is good. It exposes you to conditions, different conditions. It also there's a whole travel component to it as well if you're trying to train players for that higher level.
Yes.
However,
Cost.
money,
Cost.
right? Money is just as important. So I'm sure there are budget restrictions there. From a broadcast perspective, it would make it a lot easier to rig once, get through the whole tournament, and de-rig comparatively to like the I'm losing my words, like the CPL where you're constantly moving,
Moving
and that's a lot of
around.
money. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of time for the
Yeah.
Cricket West Indies. So maybe for this year, starting in one location and seeing where it goes might be a good start.
Yeah.
I know it's a T20 league,
It is. Yeah.
and Cricket West Indies has really struggled in the 50 over format.
Yeah.
So ideally, I would like to see this transition into an expansion of maybe a 50 over competition as well,
Yeah.
because that is an area where Cricket West Indies has really struggled lately.
They have, but they're struggling because, in my opinion, that ODI is going away. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. A lot of people said T20 is the way to go. A lot of people say Test cricket is so great, and the tradition and the years of it, the legacy that Test cricket has, you can't throw it away. But that ODI thing, I think a lot of people are on the fence. Who's spending money to spend a whole day watching a cricket game when you have more excitement in a 3 hour or 2 hour T20 game? I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but it's a very big argument these days. That's why no one's focusing on it. That's why I think the West Indies are you're not making a lot of money off it. So they're not doing it.
It's a big debate. I agree with you, especially from a financial standpoint. I still enjoy my 50 over cricket.
Actually, I do as well.
So it's a tough pill for me to swallow to not have 50 over cricket, because it's a format that I've grown up with. It's a format that, we just had the Champions Trophy as well, another 50 over competition. It doesn't help that it's only a handful of countries in the Champions Trophy, but I understand where the Champions Trophy stands compared to the 50 over World Cup.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be phased out anytime soon, to be honest.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I'm with you on
my
that.
opinion.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk about it, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon either.
I think we're far away from that, because we're adding more formats. We added T20, now we're adding T10s.
Yeah.
So it's getting shorter and shorter, but
Yes.
when you look at it from an entertainment perspective, for real I won't say real cricket fans, but people who understand the game. For me, the T10 version is entertainment, but there's no real cricket from a tactical perspective.
It's mindless entertainment.
It's just, swing at everything. And oftentimes it's not a contest between batter and bowler. It is really just a batter's game. The bowlers don't get much at all out of it. So true. Which is why 50 over cricket's nice to watch. You get the ebbs and the flows, and you get the swing between the two sides, and you get to see good contest between batter and bowler. It's not always one-sided.
I totally agree. But what do they call us? We're living in, they call it the experience environment or the attention economy or whatever it is. And I don't think people have that attention for a whole day. I think that's part of the problem now. They want a quick fix. So everything is going to no more than 3 hours. And I think that's the biggest thing driving this whole thing. As you said, the T10, I don't know, they call it, in England, they have the 100, and it's a huge thing. Yeah. And you know what? At the end of the day, in my opinion, maybe that's what people are going to gravitate to, because it's easier to sell than a one day. But I think cricket is losing what it is when they go to a 100 or a T10, because as you're absolutely right, that is not cricket.
It's we might not be favorites of this opinion, but
but it is where the money is going to go.
That's right. And money talks at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, as a sponsor, where are you going to put your money? Who is going to show up for 100 versus an ODI? And it's going to be more people showing up for the 100. You're going to put your money there, and it's going to help that part of the sport grow. And before you know it, in a year's time, you and I come back on the show and we talk about the 100 as something exciting to talk about.
Yeah. But, from an ICC tier perspective, we're an associate country here in Canada.
Yeah.
And not so long ago, about 10 or so years ago, you had Ireland, Netherlands, Canada, Afghanistan, all these associate countries then trying for test status, trying for the full member status.
Yeah.
And out of that whole batch, Ireland and Afghanistan ended up getting full member status.
Yeah.
For Ireland, it's really shot themselves in the foot because it's dried up a lot of the cricket that they used to get in England. And
Okay.
now it's not so much about test cricket at all. Yeah, they get the funding of a full member country, which is really nice because it's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of developing their cricket, their players used to be able to play in England, which they can't as much anymore because I believe there's some restrictions because they're now a full member
Full
compared
member.
to the
Yeah.
associates.
Yeah.
And we tried for all those years trying to become a full member, but all of those years, I suppose you could call them wasted years because now, are we still trying for full member status? We're not. We're trying for our ODI status.
Yeah.
But then that's when that breakdown financially has to make a bit more sense from the
Sense.
ICC because
Yeah.
you can't have countries like Nepal, for example, who've got so much cricket, such a large fan following, and they've got a fraction of the budget that an Ireland does. But Ireland has a fraction of the cricket that Nepal does.
That's a big disconnect there. So the
Big
money's not.
disconnect.
They have the money and no cricket. The others have the cricket and no money.
And no money, yeah. And the sad reality of the world is we need money to make things work.
You
So
gotta have money. Nothing happens without money.
nothing.
That's unfortunate, but I don't know if that's going to be an easy fix though, because I notice the ICC how they operate and they're sort of stuck in their old ways. Some people think they only do what India wants and that's it. But I don't know. You think they're going to listen to anyone to change this? Do you think it's possible that they would address this at some point?
They're going to need to because there's cricket in so many countries now. You've got the associate levels, you got the affiliate levels. There is cricket in so many countries, and
Yes,
they're all playing T20 cricket now.
correct.
So, we might have to look at something similar to what soccer does and figure out how our World Cups are going to be played and how our qualification process is going to be, because we can't say all of these countries are going to play cricket and only a handful of them get to represent at the World Cup. And now the Olympics is a question mark too, isn't it? Because cricket's going to be in the Olympics. But then you're going to say, oh, well, it's just going to be the top 6 sides. And then you might assume US is going to get in because they're a host nation. But everyone's got to be IOC, regulated, I suppose, or fall into the IOC rules.
They do.
But what's the pathway for some of these countries to actually get to the Olympics? And I understand cricket's a very complicated sport in terms of infrastructure, timing, and all of that to have a lot of teams in the Olympics. But it needs to make sense for not just a small portion of the countries that play the sport.
I agree. It's expanding, so you gotta take into consideration that it is expanding, and you gotta accommodate the expansion.
Yep.
You can't keep it limited while trying to expand at the same time. It's never gonna work. When you look at the West Indies, though, because they cannot go to the Olympics, unfortunately. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that. There is this ongoing argument that the West Indian countries should break up and not be the West Indies anymore. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a tough pill to swallow because we've grown up with the West Indies.
I know.
But again, from the Commonwealth Games perspective for the women and from the Olympics perspective, it's got to be the individual countries.
Yeah.
But then you're looking at the caliber of cricket in the individual countries, and then you're wondering, is there enough caliber? And there might be in the men's game. Don't get me wrong, they might be in the men's game, but the women's game is not quite there.
Yeah.
And this is from observations from the regional Super 50 that just finished in St. Kitts.
Yes.
I don't believe the islands have the talent pools that they would need to hold themselves in these competitions.
Agreed. And if the men go on their own, then it's unfortunate the women would have to go on their own as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
But Chris Darren, who is Jamaican, and he's now the CEO of West Indies Cricket, I don't know if he's going to change his mind now that he's the CEO, but before, he had said that he thinks it's better if they go as individuals because you can generate more sponsorship, more support, more branding, all of that type of stuff. So for me, it's interesting to watch how he plays this one. Because now he has the West Indies as a unit, but he's a proponent of going as individuals. So I'm actually watching this. I don't know have you followed that at all? How he spoke earlier now Is he playing a game now? I don't know.
I think it puts him in a very tough position because he is now representing Cricket West Indies.
I know.
And when you talk about breaking that up, it's a tough one. I mean, we know Barbados, the women's team went to the Commonwealth Games,
Yeah.
but they've got, Haley Matthews, who is one of the top players in the world right now.
Correct.
And it was very evident, and again, this is coming from the women's perspective,
Yeah.
at the regionals, the 50 over regionals, the West Indies as a team, the women's team, if they don't have the likes of Haley Matthews and Deandra Doughton
Latin, yeah.
and Stefani Taylor,
And she's
they
good.
will struggle because fitness is a big issue.
Yeah.
There is talent there. There's talent there, but a lot of times talent is mismanaged. And then that goes back to the whole coaching conversation that we had, who's
Yeah.
working with the girls? Are there leagues in each of these countries or islands? And infrastructure, it comes down to infrastructure and coaching and
Good.
pooling all of that together. So I think on a global stage, they would really struggle without their top three players.
They wouldn't make it very far.
We know when you look at the Australias and the South Africas, and England's a bit of a struggle right now, but there's some really good top sides there.
I agree. India does well. But yeah, no, I totally agree. It's an interesting conversation. Let's see how far they take it. But I noticed that you mentioned USA Cricket, that they may get a buy, but they're getting a bunch of lawsuits over there. What is going on over there in the US? Are you fully up to date with what's going on over there? Because they're talking about they may revoke their ICC membership.
I feel like USA Cricket is never far away from a lawsuit. They're always within touching distance of a lawsuit. And they've had plenty of them over the years, haven't they?
A lot. It hasn't stopped.
Yes. And we're talking about revoking their status and whatnot, but it's a tough position that the ICC is in because they're investing in the US market.
A lot.
They still keep talking about it being the next big market.
I know.
And it sucks because when you look at their teams, their men's and women's senior teams, there's a lot there to talk about.
Agreed.
There are two sides that have done really well at the global stage.
Yep.
The men's program is strong. I mean, that team they did very well at the recent T20.
Very well, surprisingly well for me personally.
Yeah, it's a strong side. The women's team did very well at the Under-19 World Cup.
Yes, they did.
So are you looking to hamper the growth of the players? And then it brings the question, are the players a product of the system? And I probably don't think they are because a lot of this is individual effort.
Correct.
But if you take away their status, then everyone else suffers with it. But how do you fix it?
That is the $1 million question because, as you said, over the years, it just seems to get going and going with these lawsuits. And as I said, they're touching distance all the time from another lawsuit.
Always, yeah. And ICC did take over a few years ago. They tried to change things around. And unfortunately, as soon as they've stepped away, you start to see things slip back into what they were.
That's not what you want.
It's not. And I feel because the ICC is giving money, and this is not just to USA Cricket, to all the members that they give money to, they should be holding these members accountable because they're financing all of these members.
Exactly.
And I understand when ICC says, well, we don't want to meddle because it's a lot for us to go into every country and look into this.
Agreed.
But at the same time, if you want the sport to grow in the right direction, you might have to be a bit more hands-on.
You got to do something. You can't sit and watch it fix itself. You got to do something because you're investing in it. So make sure your investment is worth it.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Just quickly now, I'm taking a quick look at the score because I'm invested in what Canada is doing. So they're now 105 for 5. I don't know. What is happening there, Monali? What is going on here?
Well, Harsh Tucker is still out there.
Yeah.
So let's give him some faith because he is.
Well, we have no choice now.
He can change things around for his side. He's.
But if he goes, what's going to happen?
We're
done.
It's a very good question. I think actually he is gone according to this latest.
Oh, he just left? Oh my
Yeah, so it's
God.
the captain Nick Curtin, who's very handy with the bat, and Shreyas Mova, the wicketkeeper, who's also very mature, with the way he bats. So I think Canada's still, they can still pull this off.
It's 62 runs from 60 balls, so it's not hard to do in terms of that statistic, but you got to have the people out there that can do it. So it sounds like Canada's at its last two recognized batters.
Everyone down to Dylan Hayliger can bat. So they've
Ah.
got 4 people who can bat there.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, they have a good shot then.
They need these points. They have had
absolutely
a lot of rain.
They absolutely need this. So
yeah,
I don't know, man. I was optimistic when it started, but they started losing wickets, and 91 for 3, 105 for 5. They're certainly headed in the wrong direction. But fingers crossed, fingers crossed. We need the points. Ingle, where are you, Ingle? Get them going, Ingle.
He's probably stressed. Although I've never seen Ingle stress, actually.
No, he's not stressed.
He's very calm.
Always calm, always calm. So, all right, so we can talk a little bit about what happened with the Champions Trophy, because Ingle chose New Zealand, so I beat him again. I took India. But it was not in Pakistan, who were the host country.
No.
It was in Dubai. And I think no one from Pakistan showed up at the presentation ceremony. So I don't know what your thoughts are on, India winning again and getting all the power that they had to move the game to Dubai.
You're going to put me in a very tough position here.
Okay.
But
dance around it.
Like Ingle, I had gone for New Zealand as well.
Okay.
And this is purely because if there's no African, South Africa is my team. And if they're out, then I go to the next underdog, which is New Zealand. Listen, we've said money.
Yes. Makes the mirror go.
Money makes decisions. Okay. And the fact of the matter is the BCCI brings in about 95% of that.
Correct.
Is it a small price to pay to make sure that they get their say in where the game's going to be played, the finals, their games? We saw this at the T20 World Cup with their finals.
Yes.
So yes, there are certain things that they get to sway in their way, and it's not necessarily fair to the other countries, but at the same time, they pay for a lot of these countries. And that's the reality. So it might be a price that you pay to play cricket, because a lot of these countries don't have the ability to generate the income that the BCCI does.
Yeah.
I mean, all of us associates should, we wouldn't exist if it wasn't for their income.
Agreed.
So.
And they know that too, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
And they're trying to make sure that everybody knows that, which is the unfortunate part about it. But I agree with you. It's a very, very tough one. I don't know if there's any way around it at this point in time, because when you control 95% of the pot, you control the pot.
You control the pot. That's the bottom line. And but you've got to give credit to countries like New Zealand, like Australia, who've been able to hold their own on the field at the very least.
Correct.
Unfortunately, you can't have it all your way. You've got to be the team traveling at the Champions Trophy. You've got to get home ground advantage. So there are a lot of small things that you're paying for along the way. But it also means that your cricket program survives. So.
Yes, which is actually, at the end of the day, that is number one.
Yeah.
So we have to take it as whatever you get. You got to take what they give you. So unfortunate.
Until you're able to develop that kind of, or generate that kind of money.
On your own, which may take a very, very, very long time.
You would need 1 billion people to do
that. And that's not happening. So we'll see. And on other notes, back to women's cricket a little. I know Coach Sean Dietz, not sure if you're a fan or not a fan. Some people said he's not done well enough, they should get rid of him. Some people said he's a good coach, all of that stuff. But without getting into him, he's saying now it's not just surviving and looking nice. Players have to be scoring over 100 strike rate to succeed at international level.
Yeah.
If you don't have the skill to to hit fours, if you can't score over 100 strike rate, you're not going to have any success in international cricket. So I think he's passing that on to the women's players. Do you think it's the right approach for them, these women batters?
Yeah, absolutely. It has to be. It's the only way you'll be able to compete against the Australias. And I'm going to pull England in. I know they're having a rough patch, but Australia, England, South Africa, it's the only way you'll be able to compete against those sides.
Yeah.
And it's the reality of what cricket has become. If your strike rates aren't up there, if you're not able to rotate, hit the boundaries,
Yes.
then the game isn't for you anymore. And this is why, we can say, well, we want 50 over cricket, especially for the women. We want to see more test cricket. But they play a lot of T20 cricket. They play some 50 over cricket, a lot of T20 cricket. The Women's Premier League final is on right now. We've seen a 200 plus score in the Women's Premier League.
Yeah.
All the scores have been up around 160, 170.
I saw that.
And that does not happen unless you've put in the training to be able to hit those big boundaries and work on that fitness and that strength. Strength conditioning is very important these days in cricket.
It is. You got to be fit and you got to be strong.
Yeah. And bringing that back to the West Indies, for example, and going back to their women's Super 50 that just finished, the dot ball percentage averaged over 70% for all 6 islands. 70%.
Good Lord. That's how the scores are like 80s and whatever.
Correct. So this is why if you've got a 70 plus percentage dot ball percentage in your game and your strike rates are 30, 40, barely 50, you will not be able to compete against the best of the world. And that's the reality. I mean, India is guilty of the same issue over the years. The Women's Premier League is going to help their game. It's their second year in.
Yeah.
Second or third? Third year in.
Yeah.
But they've had the same issue with their strike rates in the past. They're just not fast enough when it comes to scoring their runs. It's changing now with some of the younger ones.
Yeah.
And the help of their players going and playing at the women's BBL and the 100 and the women's CPL. That's helping.
Yeah.
But that's just the way the game is going now. You have to be able to do that.
Is it a mindset that is missing? I mean, for me, everything is mental. If you condition yourself mentally, then you can do it. Are they being coached mentally to get to that point where they need to get to? Because it's been a while since this issue has been going on. A long time.
It's for me, it's a two-sided thing. It's a mental game, yes. Yeah. But especially for the women's game, it's a strength and conditioning part as well. Some women who are, naturally bigger, stronger, are able to clear the boundaries, but not everyone is. And for that, you have to put in the time in the gym, and you've got to get your strength training going. You have to be more of an impactful player, and that sometimes comes with doing a lot of the gym work. And the mentality part of it for me, and I'm going to talk about Canadian cricket, which I've been exposed to, West Indian cricket and Australian cricket, having played in all those regions. The mental aspect is massive because you look at how the Australians want to approach the sport mentally and that belief and the never say die attitude.
Correct.
They're being given all that support, not just by their teammates, not just by their coaches, but all the way up through the system. That's the mentality that's bred into them.
Yeah.
You look at a Canadian perspective or even a West Indian perspective, the mindset's very different. It's very defensive. And you cannot expect your players to go and play as freely as you want them or need them to when you've constantly told them to be defensive.
Defensive, correct.
I actually had this conversation with one of the players at the Super 50 because I said, I notice a lot of you players are going down on one knee to field. Why are you still doing the long barrier? Because the outfield isn't that quick. And she said, well, I just want to be safe. And I'm like, that's interesting. And I can understand why you're saying you want to be safe. But that's not her saying she wants to be safe necessarily. That's the way she's been taught.
Yes.
Mentally, they've always been said, this is safer, this is safer, this is safer. Instead of, I want you to give it 100%. I want you to attack the ball. And if you've attacked the ball and you've done whatever you can to try and stop that ball and stop the the extra run, I'll be
Yes.
okay with that.
Agreed.
You
Agreed.
know,
That's what it
so
should be. You're
mentality is a
absolutely
big
right.
one.
Yeah, that's how I see it as well. If you fix that, you can move mountains, as I would always put
Yeah,
it. So,
absolutely.
but you're right. I mean, they're coming from a place where they're just not aggressive enough. They're just not confident enough. They don't believe in themselves enough to just go for it all the time.
Hmm.
And until they get to that spot to say, I'm good enough, I'm going to be aggressive and I'm going to go for that,
Yeah.
it's going to be a little bit of a problem, I believe.
It comes with time though, and this is why I really believe the new T20 league that the West Indies has put in for the
Yes.
juniors or the
Yes.
youngsters is perfect, because it might breed more of that hunger and more of that mentality that we want.
Agreed.
And sometimes going with the same old coaching staff and the same old mentorship might not work, which is why, I'm glad that Darren Sammy's come into coaching positions, because he's young enough now still. He's
Yeah.
seen the modern game. He's fresh with his coaching techniques. A lot of that is important.
Correct. Correct. And I mean, it was a big move given him the test team, and that's a huge conversation maybe for another time. And he has come out and said he's not going to take his white ball players and take over the test team. So,
Yeah.
which is good to hear.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, especially those in the Caribbean, believe that the better players are the T20 players, and they should be playing Test cricket. I don't know what their thoughts are on that. The Shy Hoves and the Brandon Kings and all the Pura and all of them, they're saying they should all be playing Test, and then the West Indies would have the best Test team. But I don't know what their thoughts are on that. Should we be pushing them over into Test, or just leaving the Test players to continue playing Test?
Well, look at them. They are T20 players, yes,
Yes.
but they have the technique
Yeah.
to play T20 cricket. It's not like they don't necessarily have the technique for it. The mental aspect is something they might need to work on, because it is a longer version
Yes.
and you might need to be fitter mentally.
Yes.
But at the same time, let's look at Test cricket. How many Test matches have gone into the fifth day lately? A lot of them are wrapping up in 4 days.
3 days now.
Exactly.
Basketball, 3 days.
That's right. So,
Crazy.
even Test cricket's changed. It's not 150 runs a day. We're looking at 300 to 400 runs a day, and
Correct.
we're actually seeing more and more results. So there's no reason why some of these players shouldn't be in the Test side just because you
I agree.
specialize them as T20 players.
I agree. They don't make a lot of money over there. That's why they don't do it. And I see
Yeah.
some of the veterans have come out, but I think Michael Holden, Curtly Ambrose, Viv Richards has said they need to balance financial success with a passion for team glory. But
Yeah.
right now, I think it's a lot about financial success. And
Yeah.
I don't know what your thoughts are on this. Do you think that is ever going to change? Money, again, it gets back to that money thing. Is it all about the money?
People need to understand, someone who goes to school and does a job might do it from the time that they graduate to the time that they're 60, 65, because that's their career.
Correct.
Athletes don't have the luxury of
10 years.
Exactly. They've got 10 years, maybe 15 years to make an impact.
Yes.
And to secure their futures out of it.
Correct.
And money has a big say in that. You can't secure a future without money. So I can't necessarily blame the players for choosing the T20 leagues for the money. They've got families to pay for, kids to take care of.
Yeah.
But of course, the pride is still there in representing your country, representing your region. I understand that.
Exactly.
But it's
I don't think the guys that are talking, that's all they did. They weren't making all that much money, but they were all about representing the region, representing their country, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the big difference. It depends on where you're coming from. So these Richards and Bros holding the other guys, 70s, 80s, they did so much for cricket, and they weren't becoming millionaires out of it. I mean, they made decent money, but it was all about the West Indies. And I think they're trying to impart it to the up-and-comers now, but things have changed.
Things have changed. That's just the reality of it. And we've got to find a way to keep adjusting with it. There has to be a way to adjust with it. Because I don't think we're going to go back to what it was.
I don't think so either. I think those times have passed. Never to come back. We're in a new generation, and I tell you, it's a really different generation. So I don't know. A quick note about Darren Simon, though, because a lot of people feel he's more of a cheerleader than a coach. I think how you explain who he is, I think it's probably one of the better explanations, which I think people need to appreciate, is that he understands the environment much better than most people.
Mhm.
He's immersed in it, he's adopted it, and he loves it. And he knows how to bring the best out of his players to meet the environment.
Yeah.
Not so sure about the test cricket part of it, but I think is he technical enough as a coach to be given all three responsibilities? I think is sort of my question.
So I feel like coaching um, varies a lot in terms of what you're actually doing as a coach at different levels. If you're working with junior sides and you're under 19s, you might need to be a bit more hands-on, a bit more technical, because
Yeah.
at that age, players are still trying to figure out what works for them.
Yeah.
When you're working with intermediate players, and these are your under 19s, under 23s, by then your players don't need the technical help necessarily. They need how to execute best and
Correct.
how to mentally take care of their game. And then when you're working with your senior players, there's almost, to me at least, there's very little um, technical knowledge. It's more working with the players because the players also have the technical knowledge at that level.
They should.
And you want to work with them and tweak and work on tactics.
Yeah.
And I think someone like Darren Sammy would be able to do that, given that he's been successful as a player, he's been successful as a captain.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you need those qualities to be a good coach by any way, but I just think at that level, it's more people management skills. And like you said, a cheerleader is sometimes what you
It's
really
important.
need. You just need someone to believe in you and someone to help you in the areas that you might need to fine tune. You might not need more than that at that level.
Totally agree. Totally agree. The cricket purists would say he doesn't have all these certificates that everybody else has and all of that, which is important for some people. I don't know. Is that something that you consider as well, that he should go and get himself certified as much as possible? Or
I do think that, and it's not necessarily to question his cricket knowledge,
yeah,
but knowing cricket and managing people are two very different things.
agreed.
And here in Canada, we've got a great NCCP program through Sport Canada. In fact, even Cricket Australia uses a lot of our material.
Oh, good to hear that.
Yeah, so a lot of these courses they're not sports specific. They're not teaching you about your sport, but they are teaching you about all the other elements that go into developing an athlete. Whether that's nutrition, whether that's the mental aspect, whether that is workload management, however you want to look at it.
Yes.
There are so many courses out there that can help coaches become better coaches. And for any sport, it's not cricket specific necessarily, because you're learning how to manage people. You're learning how to manage people who are on the road for months at a time, away from family, away from what they normally would eat. How do you get the best out of those players? So I don't believe as a coach you're ever going to reach your point of final education in it. There's never going to be that. You're always going to be learning as a coach.
Agreed. Always growing. Always going. Well, we're almost out of time. Any final thoughts?
No, I was just gonna have to keep watching this Canada game and the Women's Premier League final, which is on right now as well.
As well, yeah. So Canada seems to be doing what you said. They're 126 for 5 now. So haven't lost another wicket. They need 41 runs from 36 balls. So they're not doing too badly. If they don't lose another wicket, then they should take this. They should take this.
They need to take it.
They better take it. All right. It was a pleasure having you on, and it was a really, really educational talk as well as a fun talk. So absolute fun, and thank you. And we're back next week having more fun on the England Roger Sports Hour and Lovely Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and have a wonderful weekend.